Human beings and science in general has a really hard time accepting the eternity of all that is. There was never a beginning, nor will there ever be an end to all that is. And since you and I are microcosmic expressions of all that is, there has never been a beginning to us, nor will there ever be an end. We are eternal. And the same is true for the universe. The universe has always been here and will always be here. Welcome to another episode of AI and Spirit. This is the video series where I talk about the convergence of artificial intelligence and spirituality that is showing up as the technological singularity, which is actually a spiritual inflection. It is a moment in time in which humanity has gotten to the point where it is ready to move forward into greater levels of spiritual expansion expressed as technological advancement. And in this episode, I want to talk about something that's been talked about so many times on the internet and here on YouTube over the last many years. And that subject is whether or not we're living in a simulation. This is an interesting subject that titillates science and scientists. Some of them are so passionate about wanting to understand what is going on in physical reality and whether what is going on in physical reality is a creation of something like a computer or a super intelligence, and whether or not within that creation we have free will. And I'm not here to disparage science in any way. That being said, this idea of physical reality being a simulation has been completely and thoroughly discussed in the spiritual annals that I am familiar with. In other words, the spiritual perspective has known that this physical reality that we exist in is a creation, it is an illusion. And spirituality, as I said, has known this for many, many years. It also understands the source from which that illusion, or as science likes to call it, that simulation, spirituality has known for many, many years where the origin of this simulation comes or is. And it is not in a computer, nor is it in a god. The simulation, this physical reality that we're all experiencing, is a product of you. The source of the simulation is you. I find it peculiar that science is wanting to identify some sort of a supercomputer or an alien intelligence that is responsible for creating the reality, the universe that we live in. Science and scientists can't possibly believe or accept, perhaps, that human beings, the points of consciousness that are represented by human beings, are responsible. That point of consciousness is responsible for the creation of the physical reality that we find ourselves in. I want to believe that the reason why science isn't willing to accept that is because science believes that human beings are only capable of a certain level of intelligence. It's not possible for human beings to be something more than their human beingness, says science. But the fact of the matter is, you, me, and every other point of consciousness embodied in a human frame is divine, infinite intelligence. And we are ongoingly, individually, creating the experience we're experiencing. And that creation is occurring inside of us, not inside of our physical bodies, because our physical bodies are part of the simulation, part of the creation. The creation that we're creating is happening inside of the wholeness of us, which is pure positive energy. And the reason why I laugh there is because we're pure positive energy, there's no way we can create bad or evil. So everything that's happening in this simulation, in this physical reality, in this universe, must be good. And it is. And so I find it interesting that science has been, over many years, touching on this idea that physical reality is a simulation. And recently, like in the last 3 years or so, the subject has become very popular on YouTube and elsewhere, where scientists are beginning to lean more in the direction of the fact that this is a simulation. But again, this is where science introduces distortion, because science so far, at least to my knowledge, has not accepted that the simulation, physical reality, which includes the universe, this thing that science is calling a simulation, is occurring within the consciousness of what we call humanity. And each one of those points of consciousness is creating its individual version of reality. But I also find it gratifying that science is finally moving in the right direction. This is not a simulation, it's a creation. It is reality. It's a paradox, like many paradoxes in all that is, because as much as this is an illusion, it's not a simulation, it's an illusion, it's like a dream, it's not simulating anything, it's directly reflecting what we are wanting to experience. And that illusion, that dream that we're calling physical reality, while it is an illusion, it's also so real that if you jump off a building or you walk out in traffic, you're going to get knocked out of the illusion. Now, science has talked about in its hypothesis that physical reality might be a simulation. Some scientists dispute this by saying there's not enough energy in the universe to create something like the universe. And here again is where the distortion occurs within science. Science will not acknowledge, not only does science not acknowledge that human intelligence is infinite spiritual consciousness, not only will it acknowledge that, nor will it acknowledge that human consciousness is responsible for creating this illusion, but it also won't acknowledge that, and this is important, human consciousness, the pure positive energy that is you and me, is not only infinitely intelligent, it's infinitely powerful. Think about it. If each one of us can create a reality that feels and acts and is perceived as so real as this reality, we must enjoy an enormous amount of creative energy, creative potential. And that's what we are. We are pure positive energy creators, and we have at our disposal infinite amounts of energy. And so when science goes out in the universe trying to find the source of this simulation and claims that there's nothing in our universe that has enough potential energy to create the simulation, they call it, that we're experiencing, and therefore it can't be a simulation, the reason why they can't find the source of the simulation is because the simulation is us, and the reason why they can't find the energy source is because the energy source is us. It's each one of us. That's how powerful we are. We are so powerful, we literally, ongoingly, are creating the world around us as we go. Now, if you want to test this, I invite you to come into the positively focused practice where we're testing it all the time. We're not testing it to find out if the simulation is a simulation. What we're doing is we're proving to ourselves that we are the creator of this reality and that we can create any reality we want once we learn how to harness the fundamental spiritual principles underlying how physical reality works. These fundamental spiritual principles are the principles that we have decided and agreed upon would be the principles upon which how physical reality works. And that's why physical reality works that way. Another thing that science likes to talk about with regard to this being a simulation, this being physical reality, is that physical reality is based on math. Physical reality is not based on math. It looks that way because human beings invented math as a language to interpret physical reality. Physical reality operates on the fundamental principles underlying spiritual reality, which are spiritual. They're not mathematical. It's just that when you use the language of math to interpret the spiritual principles, you get the calculations that you get. But that doesn't mean math is the basis of physical reality. Human consciousness is the basis of physical reality, and human consciousness is infinitely intelligent, and that's why when it creates in these elegant, divine, beautiful, ordered, not chaos, expansive ways. The reason why physical reality often is so beautiful is because we are pure positive energy, and one of the expressions of pure positive energy is beauty. It's so good. So, are we living in a simulation? Of course we are. It's not a simulation, though. It's not simulating anything. It's a reflection. Physical reality is a mirror. It is created by the consciousness that exists within it. That consciousness, you and I, are infinitely powerful. We are also infinitely intelligent. And it is through that combination, our infinite intelligence and our infinite power, that we ongoingly manifest or create the experience we call physical reality as a way of facilitating our individual expansion and the expansion of all that is. So, yes, somebody is creating the reality we live in, and that somebody is you and me and everyone else who's participating here. And one other thing that science talks about in its discussion as to whether or not this is a simulation is whether or not we have free will within it. And the fact of the matter is, we do have free will. And we use that free will in order to prosecute our expansion, to move forward our expansion. And our free will is, there are guardrails around our free will, and those guardrails are the core values that make up what each and every one of us is. Each and every one of us comes into physical reality with our unique perspectives born of our unique core values, and we express ourselves according to those core values. And so it seems as though our free will is limited, but it's not. We have chosen long ago to align ourselves to a certain perspective, those core values. And today, long after, we are now experiencing the momentum of that core value focus. So we have free will, but it's only in the context of the core values that we have developed for ourselves. It's so good to know this. Another thing that science talks about when they look at whether or not physical reality is a simulation is, this is so good. If this is a simulation, where were the simulators existing before the simulation got turned on? Like, if the universe is inside of all that is, where is all that is, so to speak? And if the universe started billions of years ago as a tiny concentrated form of energy, what was there before that tiny concentrated form of energy? The Big Bang, the precipitator of the Big Bang I'm talking about. And these kind of questions are based on distortion. Human beings and science in general has a really hard time accepting the eternity of all that is. There was never a beginning, nor will there ever be an end to all that is. And since you and I are microcosmic expressions of all that is, there has never been a beginning to us, nor will there ever be an end. We are eternal, and the same is true for the universe. The universe has always been here. It's always been here and will always be here. So if you've listened this far, it's about 15 minutes now, you can hear that science is onto something. But even though it's onto something, there are still distortions in its perspective. Reality is not a simulation. Reality is an illusion. It's a construct. Its creators are you and me. And we are ongoingly creating this construct for the purpose of expansion, for the purpose of joyful experience, for the purpose of expressing our unique and diverse core values as a way of contributing to the expansion of all that is. Isn't that good to know? It's great knowing this. It's even better consciously grabbing hold of the levers that we are unconsciously using to create our reality, and then consciously creating a reality. Consciously creating the reality we desire, instead of feeling like we have no free will, as science says, or feeling like we are bound to a chaotic and random universe in which bad things can happen. You can live in that reality if you want to, but my clients and I are discovering that you can live in a completely different reality, totally controlled by you, where nothing happens in that reality but what you want to happen. If you want to know more about how to do that, please reach out. I have time on my calendar. And whether you do that or not, if you decide to come back and watch another video on this channel, I'll see you in that video.